Welcome, everyone. I Need Living Conversations, the 217th session that we get together, me, Julian Catari, and Blue Hair and Women, and we go over the different Owl Council House investigations that we have at Blue Hair and Women prepares for us every week, which are in-depth studies of different subjects, things that have to do with what's unknown, what is not given to us in regular media, things that are going to help us become free and liberate ourselves from all kinds of different aspects in life, not just the government, not just the media, but things how we can and must change our worldview and our understanding of the world if we are to be fully free. So welcome to this conversation, which is about the I Ching and the minerals and the keys of life, the I Ching minerals and the keys of life. So the I Ching is a code of 64 hexagrams that is part of ancient Chinese wisdom that is commonly used to read people. You have these coins, you flip the coins, with that you get some hexagrams, and that gives you a kind of a prophetic, like a prophecy, some type of reading, like you have tarot kind of divinatory readings. Well, I Ching is something similar, but it turns out that it's something that is a lot more profound, and you're gonna tell us about that today, aren't you?
Yeah. So it's the hidden keys of life are the I Ching, the genetic code, and minerals, all in combination. So the ancients saw our planet Earth as an organism that operated on the basis of soil, air, fire, and water. In the eyes of the Chinese, it was earth, water, fire, metal, and wood. And then they also discerned that everything that eats must also be eaten, and that nature is fecund or fertile and wants balance. So the fact that the precise recipe for forming of the lifelong identity of all living creatures and their heredity is determined by the genetic code in 64 words of 3 letters out of 5 possible ones, and has been doing so without our knowledge since life began, is one of the greatest and most momentous of discoveries. It sheds light on the whole worlds of interconnected relationships. And the knowledge that all other developments and patterns of fate and fortune are subject to the same strict law of cause and effect, and form a system of 64 potential states with 6 emphases and a mathematically infinite multiplicity of transformations into one of any of the other 64 possible states. So is what's going on here, what is involved here perhaps, sorry, I have a kitty playing at my feet and she keeps grabbing my bare feet with her claws. So is what's involved here perhaps one universal code which was discovered 5,000 years ago by the Chinese and 73 years before now by Watson and Crick, and yet even longer ago by the ayahuasqueros of the Amazon, because there's a book written by a guy named Jeremy Yarby about the ayahuasqueros of the Amazon who saw DNA long before Watson and Crick ever discovered it.
Okay.
So let's start with DNA. Okay. DNA, a chain-like molecule of great length that is a double strand that is twisted like a spiral staircase with plus and minus strands, which represents the matrix of the genetic message. The double strand consists of 2 chains of alternating units of phosphoric acid and deoxyribose, which is a simple sugar. And those 2 are combined in the building block system. And both strands are joined at regular intervals as if by rungs of a ladder, and each rung consists of 2 a pair of bases. There's 4 bases. There's adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, or the initials ATCG. Adenine is always paired with thymine, and cytosine is always paired with guanine, and they all fit together like the elements of a zipper. The genome is a very clever book because in the right conditions, it can both photocopy itself and read itself. The
Okay.
photocopying is known as replication, and the reading is translation.
Okay.
Replication occurs because of the pairing we just talked about. So the sequence ACGT becomes TGCA in the copy, and this allows DNA to replicate indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
The translation or reading of it itself is a little bit more complicated. A text of a gene is transcribed into a copy by the same base pairing process, only this time the copy is made of RNA, which replaces thymine with uracil. So there's the fifth base. So this RNA copy is called messenger RNA, and the 64 codons or words of the messenger RNA are precisely reflected in the structure of the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching.
Okay. So here we have, I'm sharing some images of this so that the ones you shared me, so that you can see that this is not, there's some research going into this. It's not just speculation.
Yeah. So now here is where it gets even more wow. Early on in the gestation of a baby, primordial germ cells migrate into the gonad of the developing embryo where they start their first division, which cuts off half of the 23 chromosomes. In the female embryo, these are called oocytes, and in the male, spermatocytes. At sexual maturity in the female, only 20 of these oocytes mature every month. And while they're maturing, they're collecting ribosomes, messenger RNA, the yolk, and some other stuff that will be used after fertilization to direct the development of the baby. So what is it that directs the development of the baby? Is it the chromosomes or is it the messenger RNA? Let's get this in our heads. Where does messenger RNA come from? The female.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such telling about this happening at sexual maturity in the male for this in the spermatocyte. It only happens in the oocyte, in the sexually maturing female, that the egg collects ribosomes and messenger RNA to direct the development of the fetus.
Okay.
What's important about this is the mRNA vaccines. What do you think they're targeting?
Yeah. Trying to screw up our genomes.
So in the male who is sexually maturing, the division then into two cells is completed. One cell has nucleus with half the chromosome material and very little cell water, and the other cell is called a polar body that has the discarded half of the chromosome. Note that again, that it does not collect ribosomes or the messenger RNA.
Mm-hmm.
What's the importance of the ribosomes? Well, the ribosomes they move along the messenger RNA and translate each 3-letter codon into one letter of a different alphabet. This alphabet is an alphabet of 20 amino acids. And at some point in time, because of these two episodes here of 20, remember I just said only 20 eggs, oocytes mature every month in the female, a sexually mature female. And there's 20 amino acids. So at some point, the Mayan calendar is going to be married to this also. I haven't discovered the link fully yet. So when the whole message has been translated from the RNA by ribosomes, the chain of amino acids folds itself into a distinctive shape that depends on its sequence, and it's now a protein. Investigations by scientists have revealed that 3 of the letters, which is a sequence of bases, always signify a code word in an endless sequence of words. By signify, I mean that a code word is an instruction for putting together or synthesizing a compound that is not the actual product itself. So note, this is not no messenger RNA goes into the amino acids. It's all comes from the recipe. So the compound is not the messenger RNA anymore. According to the laws of mathematics, 64 such combinations known as triplets are possible and have been found and recognized, and their meaning which is fixed by natural law, has been read. One or more of the words represents the information and instructions needed to synthesize the amino acid, and that then becomes a protein. So one very precisely defined sequence of hundreds of such triplet sequences is specified for one protein structure of one very precisely defined part of a living creature. So the sum total of all the code words is synonymous with blueprint for producing a whole specific plant, animal, or human body with all its individual characteristics. Since the discovery of the genetic code and its 64 words, the fact can no longer be ignored that non-material information is inherent in the nucleus of every living creature, as if it were a computer, and that information, non-material information, shapes, maintains, and increases all forms of life with an unimaginable dynamic force. The dead DNA model we have, which is that right there that you're showing us, does not show us that DNA is continually being replicated and translated, that it is vitally alive. So we see there that it winds, right? Let's say there's some 300,000 windings in the helix, and that about 15,000 a minute must be untwisted for duplication to be complete in 20 minutes, which is the normal time. See, there's a 20 again. The normal time it takes to duplicate the DNA strand. So this is an almost inconceivable process, which nevertheless takes place in the cells of every cell of every living creature every time a cell divides. A man in Germany named Pop discovered a complex system of vibrations ranging in frequency between ultrasound and ultraviolet light and numerous phenomena which are associated with the chemical physical structure of DNA and form a unity with it. So according to him, the wave character of DNA also implies that between the cells of the body, there is a universal system of communication operating at far higher speed than the humoral and neural systems that we know. And it operates at the velocities ranging between those of sound and light. That's why it's ultrasound and ultraviolet light. So ultraviolet biosignals ride on the spirals of DNA and activate specific codons. So there is a stream of transcendental information or informational power flowing into DNA, and the I Ching seems to be the textbook of this cosmic force, with the static tension between yin and yang and the dynamic flux of the orgasmic potency that we've talked about. We know that nature always takes the path that saves the most energy. She does not expend any more energy than she has to. So what we are investigating here is a bridge so that we do not suffer like gypsies on the rim of the universe in the battle of sexes, but seek as united as couples to form a new society joined together in consciousness of an all-fulfilling polarity. The difference between dualism and polarity is that dualism sees only the irreconcilable opposites and leads to prejudiced evaluations and decisions which split the world into equally irreducible opposites. Polarity is born of unity and includes the concept of wholeness because the poles are complementary to each other and indissolubly evolve into each other, like the positive and negative poles of a magnet, which imply each other, but yet they can't be separate. They're always connected. So we have one system of universal application constituting, in fact, the contents, laws, and program of every form of life of the whole animal, vegetable, and human integument of the planet in its myriad vegetations. So we could call it the Book of Life. So now let's talk about the I Ching, the law of cause and effect. So in Chinese legend, there were three great emperors, each of whom made a contribution to our understanding of the order of the universe. The first was Fuji and is credited with first formulating the language of the yin yang in describing the interactions and changing processes of all things. He then described 8 primary stages in the universal cycle of change that governs all things. So he gave us the Bagua, what we know as the Bagua.
Yeah.
The second emperor was Shin No, and he applied yin and yang to the world of food and agriculture. He became interested in developing a more detailed understanding of seasonal, planetary, and celestial influences. And then the third emperor was the Yellow Emperor, who took the accomplishments a bit further by developing a comprehensive understanding of food and its effects on the body. So Fuji is credited with saying, heaven and earth determine the direction. The forces of mountain and lake are united. Thunder or lightning and wind arouse each other. Water and fire do not combat each other. And so the 8 trigrams are intermingled. Counting that which is going into the past depends on forward movement. Knowing that which is to come depends on the backward movement. This was said 5,000 years ago. So the I Ching consists of 2 poles, or the drives of yin and yang, the 4 phases of power, which would be, he described it as old yin, young yin, old, So the equinox, the seasonal equinox would be young yin, something like that, right?
Yep.
So those are the 4 phases of power, or the 4-beat pulse of the orgasm, as we've talked about, and which unfolds into the 8-fold structure of mind, spirit, matter, and the 64 dynamic developments with the mind, spirit, matter of the Bagua, and then the 64 dynamic developments of our potential, which with 6 steps each. And again, we see this, as I brought up before, we see this, there's 6 layers of the, in our brain.
Yeah.
So the natural direction of rotation is clockwise, which gives us the sequence of the year or the solar cycle. However, knowing that which is to come depends on backward movement. Interestingly, a scientist named Roger Penrose has said that the past isn't fixed until you observe it, until you measure it. So he said that the past can change and the future is what changes the past. But we're not going to wander down that rabbit hole here because that's just way too complex for tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 8 archetypes of the Bagua that are linked into 4 polar pairs gives us axes to work with.
Okay.
Fuji had designated them with heaven at the top or the south and north at the bottom, earth. Then he had light and fire in the east, light or fire in the east and water in the west. A man investigating this also named the heaven and earth axis as the first emergence into existence. So after studying Wilhelm Reich and his discovery of the energy, the one supreme being, the organ, we're now going to rearrange this for our purposes, for more modern purposes. Given that the week before last, we talked about how early mariners first noticed the east to west pole or ley line, as the Incan shamans say, by the sun rising and setting. And then Wilhelm Reich noticed that organ moves east to west, and he discovered bions with heat, fire, light, and water. We're going to say that the first axis is still as Fuji designated it, which would be, but it will be east to west, not north to south. He designated it as light and fire and heat in the east and water in the west of the axis. And we're going to say this is the first axis of, and this is called becoming conscious, because consciousness precedes all matter. So at one pole end, we have sensory perceptions, and the other is the experience or of the divine or presence of the one life inside us. So then we're heaven and earth axis, which is north and south, it then is the axis of emergence into existence, because we first have to become conscious before anything can emerge. this is the polar tension between partners, which profoundly complement and involve each other, and is most, and as one can be most obviously dominant at some point in time, and then the other is. So here, a symbol of love and marriage is presented as beginning, the foundation with its constant renewal of the goal of male-female relations. One of the hexagrams of the I Ching says the receptive earth, which moves downward, stands above the creative, which moves upward and is below. So their influences meet and are in harmony, and all living things then bloom and prosper. The next axis then would be thunder, or lightning, which would be the stimulating and wind evaluation through feeling, gives us interoception, as we've talked about, going on in our bodies, and perception, what we do with our nerves. Then the fourth axis rounds off the orchestra of life as affectuation, which would be the acquisition of experience through feeling and its evaluation. And that would be lake and mountain, with the lake being representative of the five senses and mountain the actual experiences with predictions. So that's kind of confusing still to me. I will clarify that better later. Because this is the first time I've seen it presented as this, as polar axis. It's usually you just move around the Bagua and one line has nothing to do with the other. But this totally changes it, that it's always a polarity.
There's always polarities, yes.
Yeah. So in America, it was the molecular biologist Gunther Stent who first noticed the congruence between I Ching and DNA. He wrote, the I Ching is based on the interaction of two antithetical principles of yin and yang that then combine to form four diagrams, and then the four are combined again, 3 at a time, to form 4 to the third power, or 64 hexagrams. Each hexagram gets read from the bottom up and represents one of the 64 fundamental aspects of life, the nature of each aspect being given by the interaction, the relationship between the 3 diagrams of which the hexagram is composed. So it's all about relationship interaction. Okay?
Yeah.
He proceeds to say, if yang, the male light principle, is identified with the purine bases of adenine and guanine, and yin, the female dark principle, is identified with the pyrimidine bases of thymine and cytosine and uracil, we have a combination here. So the natural order of the I Ching can now be seen to generate an array of triplets in which many of the genetic codon relations manifest in Crick's arrangement, Watson and Crick's arrangement. And incidentally, it wasn't Watson and Crick that found the double helix. It was a woman. But Watson and Crick, she died before she could be given the Nobel Prize for this. So Watson and Crick, they don't give the Nobel Prize to dead people. So Watson and Crick got credit for what a woman did.
Okay.
Not that that's important. It's just interesting. So the I Ching is not an anachronistic work of time-worn ideas. It's the living soul of freedom in every sense, seeking expression through each individual's process of self-realization. So now let's look at both the I Ching and DNA.
Okay.
Looked at closely, the DNA helix and the chromosomes created by the union of the sperm nucleus and the ovum nucleus presents a picture of erotic intensity. In their precisely arranged polar pattern, the purine bases are very precisely combined with the pyrimidine bases of the half of the oppositely turning double helix, like the eternally embracing couple, or the yab yum of the Tibetan mysticism. I was going to tell you needed to find a picture. I totally forgot about that, to find a picture of the yab yum.
Okay.
For this. Seen like this, the world is held together in its
What's
inmost being.
The Abion?
Yab yum. YAB/YUM.
YABYUM. Okay. I can search for it while you present.
So seen like this, we can see the world is held together in its inmost being by glutine amoris, or the glue of love, and essentially consists of nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
To say it consists of nothing else would be the counterpole of pure reason.
Okay.
So the principle of polarity inherent in both systems, the world pole of yin, yang and yin on one hand, and the precisely symmetrical plus and minus strand with purine and pyramidine bases on the other, and the very marked congruence of the 64 hexagrams or words when the two systems are combined makes tenable the hypothesis that we have one code that pulses through immaterial information and at the same time through the material. And that word has become flesh. Yeah, that's the yab-yum sexual posture.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, that's what came up. Figurines.
Yeah. So the symbol of the I Ching, that also goes with tantric sex. The 10.
Mm-hmm.
So the symbol of the I Ching has a curious look about it, like the germ of a plant, perhaps even a ghost, a bodiless head freely floating.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you put the symbol of the I Ching up first. It's the circle with the three rakes, right?
Yeah. You're gonna see it in a minute.
So, and then we look. So it looks perhaps even like a ghost, a bodiless head freely floating.
Mm-hmm.
And then we look at the diagram of the DNA spiral with the code written on the rungs of the ladder, 8 rungs through 360 degrees. That equals 1 story round of the staircase. So do we see one pattern?
Is it? Is this it?
No, that's Walter Russell's periodic table of the elements.
Okay. So
the symbol of the I Ching has the circle with the 3 rakes coming out of it, like 3 tines of a fork.
Okay. Are you still seeing me? Because my mouse froze.
I'm not seeing you. I'm seeing the picture you put up.
Yeah, I'm like, my whole computer just froze. But I'm still on the air, I guess.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, you want to keep going? I don't know if it's going to unfreeze, but just the whole thing is frozen. Like, all my screens are frozen. Yeah.
So, so here we have one little other piece that just got thrown at us, that there's 8 rungs of the ladder that turn through 360 degrees that tell 1 story of the staircase. That's very interesting. And we have electron micrographs from Germany of the double helix that reveal an astounding similarity to a perpetually continued I Ching signal. And you've showed a couple of those that already. So the fact that form and structure and all characteristics of living creatures are determined by the programming of the life process through the genetic code could be defined as the programming of fate. Yet the DNA of jellyfish contains a different fate from that of the oak tree, and that of a canary is different from that of a tenor singer. And yet, one day, the similarity of, or the identity of, long strands of DNA concerned with the voice and the ability to sing might be demonstrated, just as the relatedness of all living creatures has been demonstrated. Rats behave like rats all their lives, and human beings like human beings, but to what extent do we carry elements of each other? Because we all share the same genetic code.
Yeah, so my computer did not handle the the load of changing stuff, and then okay, this is back. Okay, it's all back now.
So because of the virtually infinite number of combinations and the infinite series of endless rearrangement of code word sequences, the 64 hexagrams are perfectly adequate for describing all forms of life. And the guidance supplied by this precise scheme of 64 elements is very exact. To us Western minds, the unity of sex, social role, ethics, and the external course of cause and effect seems strange. And yet the skeleton of the I Ching, the sequences of fate, can be seen as fitting together precisely with the sequences of amino acids as programmed by the genetic code to form a single entity.
Mm-hmm. And here we see an example, maybe.
Yeah, that's a combination of the I Ching symbol and the DNA combined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks pretty like they knew it, and it all makes a lot more sense. This visual image, it really helps.
Yeah, and the ayahuasqueros of the Amazon saw that
Okay.
long before Watson and Crick discovered.
Mm. Wow. Mm-hmm.
So the active constant pairedness swelling up from the Tao is quanta in an ordered 64-fold variation of the world complex of matter, mind, and spirit. And each present moment has one quantum of freedom, 1 in 64. And after we make our decision or choice that is freely made, then the binding law of cause and effect becomes operative, and we have to bear the consequences, and the body of the serpent of destiny grows longer by one more piece, or it might grow shorter. The phenomenon of congruence can be demonstrated with clarity by a comparison of the numerical relationships. China has what's called a Chiatsu cycle, which is a 60-element series that is coordinated with hexagrams also. The numerical relationship that it represents as a current combination of 10 elements and 12-element series of symbols corresponds to the double helix of the DNA again, precisely to the common period of counting by turns and counting by triplets. So they count the DNA by turns and by triplets both. So there's 2 triplets or 6 base pairs that contain half a turn, which embraces 5 pairs, which gives us a 5-to-6 ratio that is reflected in the double form of these 10 element and 12 elements, the 10-to-12 ratio of the Chiatsu cycle.
Mm-hmm.
The series of the 60 symbol combinations of this cycle thus means in the structure of the DNA, 3 whole turns or 10 triplets is where counting by triplets or counting by turns meets at the same point.
Okay.
So at 60, they meet at the same point.
Mm-hmm.
So in the cosmology of the I Ching, the total structure of the 64 hexagrams is traced to the cosmic information patterns of the so-called metonic cycle, a period of precisely 19 solar years that was known even to the Babylonians. The metonic cycle is the period during which time the sun and moon go through the range of their possible combinations before returning to their point of departure from each other.
Mm-hmm.
If we compare this with the numerics of our extremely light-sensitive DNA, we find that this cosmological coordination is actually verified in the one period of 19 turns in the double helix, which when counted by triplets coincides precisely with the 64th triplet.
Wow.
It's so freaking mind-blowing. It's like, what? So that marks the totality of the 64-element code. With regard to the constitution of DNA, it seems reasonable to conclude that one turn of the double helix originally represented the information unit of 1 solar year. The genetic material contained in each cell of the human body consists of billions of such turns. So the turns of the DNA are evidently like annual rings in a tree and represent the annals of the race, which have been continued since the dawn of history.
Mm-hmm.
How different our lives will be when we are centered on the center of the 8 spiritual possibilities or soul senses, centered by a life of attentive listening to cause and effect. Here we could apply the Buddha's 8-fold path of right living, right view, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and the right concentration. This human sits serenely and peacefully in the center of the Bhagwa, so to speak, instead of at the edge of the universe, like a gypsy. profoundly at peace, free from all fears, not choosing suffering, with a deep sense of security because he or she knows that each of us represent eternal law.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's move into the minerals for the genetic code.
Okay.
Every cell in our bodies are protein producers, and trace nutrients govern the kind of protein you will have.
Mm-hmm.
Proteins have to develop into three-dimensional objects, and minerals allow that structure to form because of their electromagnetic influence. A chiropractor in Michigan set out to discover which individual amino acid was governed by what trace mineral. He has identified all 64 codons and their subatomic particles.
Mm-hmm.
The rungs of the DNA ladder, the 4 bases, all of them are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen, and some of them have oxygen. Yeah, that's where we're going to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Since the base pairs repeat themselves, this is where science has entered the scene with genetic manipulation. And that's all we'll say about that for now.
Okay.
Cellular damage because of malnutrition has always been the primary cause of classic diseases, he found. And crop losses in dry weather or during mild cold snaps are not so much the result of drought and cold as they are of nutrient deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So when DNA makes a copy of itself, as we said, it gets help from messenger RNA, the workhorse of our being. If the messenger does not have the right proper minerals, the copy is going to be faulty.
Mm-hmm.
The genome calls for 64 minerals. Imagine that. There are beginnings and endings in a string of codons or words, and the number 1 ending is governed by hydrogen. The second is by sulfur, and the third is by a little mineral called yttrium.
Mm-hmm.
Yttrium. IUM. Research has shown that animals can have 3 times their normal lifespan when they make use of all 3 minerals. You want me to say that again to let that sink in?
Okay.
We can have 3 times our normal lifespan if we have hydrogen, sulfur, and yttrium.
Yttrium. That's the first timer for me.
Exactly. My point exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1955, a man named Walter Russell, well, his wife kind of wrote a book called Atomic Suicide.
Okay.
As part of his study for this book, and this is just a really quick synopsis, Walter Russell was an incredibly guided man.
Mm-hmm.
As part of his study for this book, he was given a periodic chart of the elements, the periodic table of the elements, as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
The chart was written in 1926 and postulated the existence of 22 subatomic particles. In 1955, in the wake of atomic tests around the world, he was inspired to explain to people that radioactive minerals give off radiation that he calls subatomic particles, and then he rewrote the chart. He postulated that there were 23 minerals lighter than hydrogen, and so in adding these to the chart, he found it necessary to construct a spiral-shaped chart.
Okay.
The chiropractor in Michigan saw that chart, and it prompted him to realize that the creation of the human spine in its earliest embryonic stages, which are called somites, brought this whole study back to chiropractic healing.
Mm-hmm.
Somites line up, and there are spaces between the somites, and he realized that the exact number of somites with the spaces comes to 64.
Okay.
He saw that through that waveform. He turned that waveform, that periodic chart, on its side and saw that.
Okay.
So the human spine correlates to the 64 codons of the genetic chart and to the I Ching.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that anytime a segment of the human body is moved, it changes the outcome of a particular mineral. And then he found out that the output of messenger RNA is actually changed. Every time we move a segment of our human body, it changes the output of messenger RNA. That's huge. So, spinal manipulation enhances the expression of DNA through messenger RNA. Very interesting. Very profound. Innate intelligence is the electromagnetic nature of the human being, and this magnetism is directed by the DNA through the messenger RNA. So, the single food most capable, we're talking about minerals, the single food most capable of repairing DNA is a red beet. I bought some today. Red beet.
Oh, beet.
Yep.
Okay.
Beet. B-E-E-T. This food has a necessary raw material to repair chromosomal abnormalities once they've been discovered. But it's up to the body to make the discovery, and then it might retreat. So the first point of retreat is selenium. If there isn't enough selenium, then you cannot tell the cell to repair itself or die.
Yeah.
And if a broken cell continues to live and manages to cope with induced error, then cancer is made. So beets with their selenium are the most powerful medicine.
Yep.
Acupuncture meridians were discovered 5,000 years ago. That was just a little blurb aside. But I'm going to teach myself to start eating beets in every which way, shape, or form I can. And I've grown them, but I'm going to grow them again.
I don't eat them that often, but I like my body tells me at a point you need to eat that.
So that's amazing. So your body already knows that. So acupuncture meridians were discovered 5,000 years ago. And superimposing the minerals, the chart of minerals, that on the laws of the acupuncture meridians reveals the husband and wife domination law. And I'm using that with very tenderness, that word, with very, because when we look at that, we're looking at the old yang, the old and young yin and yang, in the waning and waxing of each season. Where, in summer, clearly the yang dominates, and in winter, clearly yin dominates, but it's not a domination. That's why I said I'm using that word very gingerly and very tenderly. Because the domination we know.
It prevails, maybe.
Yeah. So with 6 fields dominating 6 other fields, how these fields connect to minerals and subatomic particles with one mineral dominating another has been discovered by this chiropractor in Michigan. And again, that, it's not the domination is not what we think it is. So there are 64 3-letter codons on the standard genetic chart. And Dr. Ulrey, the chiropractor, superimposed a mineral chart over that standard chart. So each codon is affiliated with an amino acid and also a mineral. And the messenger RNA always begins with the amino acid methionine and ends with sulfur, hydrogen, or yttrium. So we're going to explore these, and we're going to start with 64.
Okay.
Starting from the bottom. The codon is CCC, so 3 C's. 3. The amino acid is proline, and the mineral is lutetium.
Okay.
The spinal segment is the coccyx forebone and the hexagram 64, which is either before the end or not yet finished. Lutetium is a mineral that apes cobalt. It mimics. And cobalt is a carrier for other trace minerals. Cobalt, coupled to a cyanide molecule, which is carbon and nitrogen, creates vitamin B12. Lutetium is a mineral with the same classification as cobalt, and it has a minor place in the genetic code. But since there's very little of this in the body, he wondered. But then he found out that it turns out to be either the most used or the 14th most used mineral.
Okay.
Lutetium.
It's right here on this chart right here.
Yeah. Number 63, the codon is UUUU, all uracil. The amino acid is phenylalanine, and the mineral is lanthanum. I haven't heard of 90% of these before.
Yeah.
So. The spinal segment is the coccyx 3 disc, and the hexagram 63, which is already completed. Dr. Ulrich hypothesizes that there is really no junk DNA. And what we consider junk DNA is that DNA protects working genes with long protein sequences that have the ability to absorb electrical shocks and to disperse electricity without damage to the work gene. So all that would be what's the junk DNA. Very few of us know about lanthanum, and yet the DNA code calls for mass amounts of it. And the relationship between silica and lanthanum is the glue that holds the junk DNA together. Okay, number 62, the codon is AGA. The amino acid is arginine, and the mineral is barium. The spinal segment is the coccyx 3 bone.
Okay.
And the 62nd hexagram, which is called small crossing. And there's many other names for it. I wasn't going to get into all the names of the hexagrams here. So what science says is that the AIDS virus thrives on barium, but its appetite for barium can be neutralized with selenium. And since selenium is a resident of the brain, if there's not enough selenium, then AIDS would ultimately result in massive neurological deterioration. And it does. Absolutely does. I've seen it. As Dr. Ulrich says, if you shut off the light, everything else fails, and the brain is the light. Everything that comes out of what we are is dependent on how we distribute light through our tissues via the subatomic particles and the nervous system. Placement of the mineral nutrients in the spine governs how all minerals in the body work.
And here we have an image of the 62nd hexagram.
Yeah.
The small crossing. The names, you can see that in the hexagram, the small crossing.
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
Haven't gotten there yet myself.
So the spine responds to excesses and deficiencies of the full pantheon of minerals. So what he's saying here is placement of the mineral nutrients in the spine governs how all minerals in the body work. So this is the placement. These minerals are located at these spots in the spine.
Okay.
That's what I take him to be saying. I'm going to get another one of his books and investigate this further. Barium has a major impact on the calcium-magnesium ratio in our bodies, and our skies are currently being filled with barium. Barium is inserted into the intestinal tract to enable photography, and it also absorbs radiation. In X-ray, barium paints a picture in the dark. So barium falling from the sky answers the demand for some destruction of errant radiation, I guess. But barium in the air is no problem because it will only challenge people who have no selenium to spare. And that could also be part of why I had some baby goats die. Maybe their mothers are selenium
deficient, yeah.
Deficient, but how they gave birth to one healthy and one, I don't know. Anyway.
It chose to make one healthy, and I mean, it was smart about it.
Yeah.
Instead of having two unhealthy ones, it chose one to be healthy.
Yeah. So the chemtrails in the sky then are calcium, magnesium, and barium, along with titanium and aluminum, to reflect sunlight at 90-degree angles for the purpose of reflecting sun back into outer space. Now, what kind of a dumbass thought of that idea?
Well, people that are
What
not
good?
concerned about the well-being of anything, they
Yeah,
just want to experiment their military technology.
yeah, really, what good does, I mean, I'd never, this is, what good would reflecting sun back into outer space do? It would just come back, would it not?
Well, it will keep shining. They believe it could be a way to reduce light or like global warming or whatever. That's what
Yeah,
they
I
say.
know. That's what they say. So the only antidote for aluminum toxicity is calcium, magnesium, and silicone. And our last one we're going to talk about tonight is number 61. The codon is GAG or GAG.
Okay.
The amino acid is asparagine. The mineral is cesium. And the
Hmm.
spinal segment is the coccyx 2 disc and the hexagram number 61 of confidence within.
Hmm.
And cesium is a veritable sponge for wiping out cancer, supporting the immune system, and short stopping disease in the first place. Cesium suppresses potassium, so it must be taken with potassium. And cesium raises the temperature of cancer cells to the point where they commit suicide and die.
Okay.
So, anyone with cancer needs to take cesium and selenium.
Hmm.
And that's where we're going to stop with that tonight.
Okay. No, that's plenty of a overview of how this system works, and it's nothing light for just anyone, not you, not anyone. It's just something that you cannot cover on a video, or I mean, even a whole book is not being enough.
Yeah.
You say you want to get another book.
Well, yeah, because I mean, this is as I read through, and we're not going to continue with this next week. We've got to first talk, since these minerals and elements are supposed to come from the soil. We need to talk about our toxic soil
Okay.
and delve into the bullshit that goes on there.
That's going to be an important thing for people to know and to keep
Yeah,
in mind. And you know, I use intuitive wisdom, and I no longer grow stuff out here in my front patio because I feel that the dirt, the earth there. Well, there's no earth there; it's just pavement. But I have these baskets with soil, and I feel that soil has been contaminated and it's toxic because of all the paint that's falling off from nearby,
yeah, yeah.
and
It would be.
so I stopped eating the things I grow there.
Well, and then if you have vehicles driving by, they're picking up the fumes from the
Yeah,
cars
and it's
too.
right next to the street, and there's just so many contaminants
Yeah,
around. The neighbors, the crazy guy who's always spraying
yeah,
stuff around. He was spraying weed killer. He's now spraying every day. He's like painting something with this very, very, very bad smelling paint. He has a
yeah.
compressor, and it's been 2 weeks. I don't know what the hell he's painting. 2 weeks spraying that stuff. I have to close the windows because it goes into the house. It takes an hour for the smell to go away, even if it comes in for just 2 minutes. It takes an hour to go away.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah,
That's why we
yeah.
need to get into our own markets, our own land
Yeah,
areas, our own ranches.
absolutely.
This idea of being able to be self-sustainable in an urban kind of environment setting, to me, has always been. I've never really bought into that
Yeah,
idea. I think that you need to restore the full relationship with the land.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the
Being
next week is going to be the
self-sufficient.
toxic soil.
Yeah, yeah. The
Something like
toxicity
that.
of our soil.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't found a better
Title.
title than that. but yeah, then we'll return to going through the codons and the spinal segments and the minerals and stuff, because there's some profoundly amazing information that I had never heard of before. In that is very important for our knowledge as lay people.
Yeah. Yeah, so please have the patient folks to come and listen to these conversations, and please have the love, the consciousness to, if you did listen to this, to leave a like or something. It really is a necessary thing. I mean, if you don't do that, you're just ditching this into the unknown. And so you got to help the algorithm. And we're not making any money from this. We're far from doing that. This is about you getting this information and other people getting this information. So you got to help out with that. And if you want to join the Owl Council House and the investigations and learn about our programs, you can do that at ineedoutliving.com, our website. And you can come in next week for the next conversation, which is going to be about the toxicity of our soils.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, lots of love and waterfalls of blessings for everyone, and see you on the next conversation.